Let's talk about the economy and what COVID-19 is doing with it in Estonia. This is state of emergency, day 11, Paldiski, Estonia. It's the 23rd of March and it's Monday and I'm in a military bunker. I wanted to get out of Tallinn not only because of the creeping feeling of living through Groundhog Day, but also to remind ourselves that there's a whole country outside of the capital. It's actually easy to forget that once in a while. Well, if you're living in Tallinn, that is. Now, I did play with the idea to conduct some interviews in Paldiski, but since social distancing is our aim, to keep this thing under control hopefully, then that seemed like, well, a counterproductive step to take. So I'll just show you around a bit and give some extra context why I am here in the first place. Paldiski is a small town about 50 kilometers west from Tallinn. While nowadays it's mostly known for its cargo ports, back in the Soviet times the whole town was sealed off. So back in the Soviet occupation, Paldiski was basically surrounded by barbed wire. It was a huge military center and completely shut out from the outside world. If you were a regular citizen, you couldn't really get here. Curious fact that Paldiski was even used for Soviet nuclear submarine training operations. The town was not opened until 1994 when the last Russian troops left Estonia. Paldiski, the former military center, has by now re-identified itself as one of the main international cargo ports in Estonia. Nevertheless, the town feels sort of half forgotten or half abandoned, though things are getting slowly better. Now, one of the reasons why I'm here in this small coastal town is to give an example how the Baltic Sea builds connections between the surrounding countries. You might recall that in the previous videos I've been mentioning that Tallink, the ferry company, launched a cargo connection between Paldiski and Sassnitz in northern Germany. Now, this ferry called Star was originally a passenger ferry between Tallinn and Helsinki, but due to the situation on the Polish borders, where the trucks had to wait up to like 3 nights, then the government started looking for new solutions how to secure the cargo transportation between West Europe and Estonia. So Tallink assigned Star to take these trips between Paldiski and Sassnitz. By now, since the situation on the Polish border is somewhat relieved, then the Star connection between Paldiski and Sassnitz will be cancelled. Did I say cancel? Scratch that. The Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communication has now decided that they will actually keep Star going between Sassnitz and Paldiski. That is to ensure that if something should happen once again in the Polish border, then we would have a secure cargo route. So the plan is still on for the next 30 days. But besides the cargo connections, Paldiski also has a passenger connection with Kapellskär in Sweden, and the cargo that it handles includes everything from oil products, chemical products, scrap metal, wood, cars, construction machinery, etc. The cargo connections by countries include Finland, Sweden, Russia, Belgium, Spain, and even onwards to Africa and the Americas. Paldiski is also connected with the Estonian rail network, so a lot of cargo that they load from the docks here is actually transported via rail to Russia and Central Asia. So with a decreasing population of 3,500 people, Paldiski is a town of heavy industry and an example of Estonia's strategic location on the Baltic Sea. While the transit business in Estonia has been declining due to the reason that Russia has been, well, somewhat an unreliable trade partner to say the least, then Paldiski still has maintained its unique status because of its location and the strategic connections in the region. Besides transit connection, the ports here also handle exports and imports. Nevertheless, the full potential of Paldiski so far is still not realized. With its resourceful ports and good connections with Tallinn, Paldiski in these uneasy weeks is a secure logistical backyard. The surroundings of Paldiski actually has a very high concentration of wind turbines as well, and since it's a coastal town, there's also two islands right off the coast called Väike-Pakri and Suur-Pakri. This all makes it a very big potential location for wind energy. But the situation in the countries surrounding the Baltics is far from usual. North of here, on the other side of the Finnish Gulf, in Finland, they are now shutting the borders, and this means that Estonians who work in Finland and commute often between the two countries are facing tough decisions. While not long ago I mentioned that a deal was struck that allowed these frequent commuters to travel between the two countries, this deal didn't really have a long life. So starting from yesterday, this regular commuting from Estonia to Finland is not allowed anymore, and this will affect tens of thousands of people. As a general rule, only people who are registered to live in Finland are allowed entry to the country, with some exceptions regarding Sweden and Norway. This also exempts people working in rescue, healthcare and transportation, also people with urgent family matters, but in the end it's up to the Finnish border patrol to make the decision who gets to the country and who not. There's a lot of people who have their families in Estonia but their jobs in Finland, and since a lot of those people work in fields like construction where home offices and so forth aren't really an option, then these people are facing a severe risk of unemployment. Fortunately, cargo traffic between the two countries remains open. This is very important for a lot of manufacturers here in Estonia because Finland is the main exporting market for Estonian industry. And if you take into account that Finland and Sweden together amount to basically a third of all our export markets, then you start to realize how everything that's going on in the Nordic countries affects Estonia very much, since we're such a small and open economy. The Baltic Sea usually brings a lot of tourists as well to Estonia. Either the ferry connections between Helsinki from Finland and Stockholm in Sweden, or bigger cruise ships that make longer trips in the whole region. These days the tourism sector is preparing to take a serious hit, but no one really knows so far how serious it's going to be in the end. Even if travel restrictions and mandatory quarantine will be lifted sometime in the future, then the tourism sector really isn't hoping that things are going to get much better for them in a rapid pace, because in all likelihood a lot of people will be affected by this crisis economically, and foreign travel is something that people might try to save on when times are tough. We know that a lot of companies are already cutting salaries for their employees, if already not letting people go. For example, Tallink, the ferry company that I've been talking about, will cut the wages of their employees 30% across the board. This will affect approximately 3,900 people. And Paavo Nõgene, the chairman of the board, will be no exception. He's cut his salary himself, to set an example, by 50%. At the moment, this will affect the salaries of Tallink's employees for the upcoming 2 months. The crisis is also affecting the media industries, since a lot of services and events are more or less cancelled or on hold, then there's really not much point in advertising them. A drop in advertisement means a drop in income, and now the big media companies have to find solutions how to keep running. This has led to pay cuts up to 25% in Express Group, for example. Now EPL and Delphi, whose articles I've been using for these videos, are part of Express Group. They will also try to decrease their content to stay alive. And this all in the time when clear information and in-depth analysis is as crucial as ever. The transportation sector is also severely hit, with the number of domestic passengers dropping more than 80%. So there is an actual possibility that the bus connections between the main Estonian cities will be severely cut. There is real danger that in the following weeks a number of bus companies will just go bankrupt. Train passengers have also decreased by approximately 80%. Now the difference is that Elron, the train company that deals with passengers in Estonia, is already subsidized by the state. At the moment they're not asking for any extra support, they'll just try to save the resources by cutting their schedules. But they have informed their employees that people should be aware a 30% pay cut might be a reality in the future. And if you look at air traffic, then Tallinn's airport has lost 90% of its usual traffic, and it does seem like it's only a matter of weeks until airline companies start going bankrupt. The private sector is largely looking towards the public sector to survive this storm. There are parallels being drawn with the 2007-2008 financial crisis, only this time we're hearing more that actually the governments are encouraged to spend more and to make sure that the economies stay stable, well, as stable as possible.
A significant detail is that the EU will halt the strict budgetary guidelines to the member states so that the countries could increase their medical spending and also that they wouldn't have to be worried about budget deficits.
It does look like the unemployment is going to go up as well, and a lot of people are looking at it like an unavoidable consequence because the whole scope of the current crisis was unexpected to say the least. Well, there were those who were more or less expecting it and who warned about the potential scenarios, but well, better late than never, I guess. So what's the long-term outcome? There are those thinking that this is the time that we should reflect and possibly reinvent the whole structure of global capitalism. While it wasn't long ago that the phrase "everything is made in China" seemed like a funny gag, and it even became the name of a Russian electronical band, then after all this has settled, it's likely that a lot of countries will do their best to be less dependent on China in the future, because the supply chains have taken a severe hit, and if literally everything is made in China, well, everything is going to take a hit. Perhaps it's a bit premature to call COVID-19 the end of capitalism as we know it, but a shift in our ways of living is undoubtedly necessary, because if nothing else, then this crisis has shown our vulnerabilities. Whatever the new normality ends up being, it would be short-sighted to keep hustling in the same patterns like nothing ever happened.
How long will this last and how to continue onwards? One of the possible perspectives would be to maintain isolation only for the risk groups and elderly to secure that the economy keeps functioning. But that as well remains a temporary workaround solution. Nobody really knows how long this thing will last and what the total impact will be. People are getting understandably impatient, and while the numbers here in Estonia are fortunately not looking that bad at the moment, we should also avoid rushing to celebrations just yet. Because if the government steps are having the hoped effect, then this is how it would look like, and so that would prove their importance even further. The reason these steps have been taken in the first place is to relieve the potential overwhelming pressure on the healthcare system in order to save lives. Yes, the fatality rate of COVID-19 is fairly low, and people who are at most danger are elderly citizens and people with pre-existing conditions. But what is the price tag of a human life? There are those who think that the economical backlash might be worse than the actual consequences of the virus, but I believe those people haven't really looked that deeply into what's going on in, for example, Italy.
There are some people saying and hoping that the spread of the virus should pull back once spring and summer comes, but so far we really don't know that as a fact. The state of emergency is declared until the 1st of May, which would mean a total of 49 days. Right now we're at day 11. So it's vital to keep calm and rational.
And what about Paldiski? What about if one day, instead of shipping oil products and Soviet military history, it would be more known for a green energy center? And how does GDP in a country actually stack against the quality of life in the country? Is economy a byproduct of human life, or is that the purpose of it? And how should we as individuals and societies balance between these sides, while in reality we all want a roof on top of our heads and bread on the table? Well, since this is a very good time for reading and productive dreaming, then this leads us to our book recommendation of the week, which is Rutger Bregman's Utopia for Realists and How We Can Get There. Recommended to me by a very good friend of mine. Cheers, Amar. If you're not familiar with any of Bregman's ideas, then, well, actually you might be, but you just don't know that the guy has been championing them for quite a while now. So if you're curious about the different perspectives that our societies could aim towards after this whole thing is over, then Bregman has some nifty ideas. So let's keep our mind sharp and don't let anxiety get the better of you. And if you're struggling, then don't forget that you're not alone. Until the next time.